Hey everybody, I found the coolest idea. It's a scrapbook photo album made out of lunch bags. I thought this was really cool, and I thought I'd show everybody how to make one because it's unbelievably simple and it's inexpensive and it's really quick. So let me show you what I use. I use these giant size lunch bags. I think you can probably use just the plain small ones, but I like these better. And you'll need 4 for this size album. Of course, if you wanted to make a bigger one, you just add 2 pages at a time. And a glue stick, which you could probably use double-sided tape if you wanted to use that. I just think that the glue stick probably works best for this project. A brayer if you have one, if not, that's okay. And a bone folder, which is right here. If you don't have one of these, you can just use a popsicle stick. I'm sure that'll work fine. And some paper. I have a pad of paper here from K & Company. It's a really nice pad of paper. Most all of the papers in here I think are usable. Sometimes you get the pads and it's got like 1 or 2 nice papers in it, but this one actually, I think most all of the papers are really nice. So you just pick out 3 different pattern papers for this particular size album, and that is in these big eyelets. You need those. You need 6 of those if you want to. You don't have to put those on there, but I do. They look like this. I actually got those at Ben Franklin. That's the only place I've ever seen those. And ribbon to bind it with. If you don't want to use ribbon, you can use rings. But anyway, let's get started and let me show you how to do it. You do 2 bags at a time. So you take the bag and just fold it down so that the bottom of the bag is facing you. And just fold it, and then use your bone folder to get a nice crisp fold on it. And then you do the same thing with the next bag. Just fold it forward, fold it down, and then use your bone folder. And then you take your 2 bags that let me show you how those are put together again. So you just fold it down like that, and then you'll take the 2 ends and glue them together. So let me do that. If I can get the glue stick open. Alright, so then you just put it all the way out to the edge. And then you just glue the bottoms together. And then I use my brayer just to kind of get it glued together well and to get any air bubbles out. You don't have to do that. You can use a bone folder, or you can probably just smush it down. And then you just do the same bags. Get your bone folder out. Nice crisp edge. Do the same thing with the next one. Fold it down. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, it's a paper bag, so if it's not perfect, I don't think anybody would care. And then just glue these 2 ends together. Oops. And then that's going to give you your pages. So for this album that we use 4 bags with, we'll have 6 pages. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See? And then the next step is we want to cut the ends off a little bit. So we think about how long we want our pages to be. We want them longer than the middle one, but we don't want them quite this long. So I'm thinking right about here. So we're going to get the paper cutter out and just put them together and put them in the cutter where we think, whatever we think looks like a good size. And you'll probably have to run it back and forth a couple times to get through all the layers. And then the next step is to pick, once we've picked out the paper that we want, just glue that on. So I like to get out a magazine, an old scrap magazine, because it'll catch the glue for you, because if you start gluing this down and then you get glue along the edges and then you start moving it a little bit, you're going to get glue all over the back here. So this way you can just flip to a clean page and you don't get your work surface dirty, and it's just easy. You don't have to do that, but it makes it a little bit less messy so your pages don't end up sticking together once you're done. So then you just put a nice good layer of glue on there, and then we glue down the paper. Get the brayer and just make sure you get lots of glue at the edges, because that seems to be where it tends to. Oops, my glue stick is coming apart on me. Alright, so there we go. And then we put this back in the paper cutter. I mean, you could measure this piece of paper before you put it on here if you wanted to be exact about it, but I mean, it's a paper bag, so I don't think it has to be perfect. So I just stick it in there, and you don't want to cut the bag. If you have to make a cut along this side, you don't want to cut the bag so that the whole thing comes apart. So you do want to be kind of careful when you're cutting around the edges, but for this side it doesn't really matter. So there we go. That's our first page. And you just keep doing that. You put another piece of paper, just pick out whatever pattern you want and just cut your papers down to size and glue them in there. And then once you're all done, you get your ruler out and you mark where you want to put your holes at for your either rings or ribbon, however you want to bind it together. And I don't see my ruler, so I'm just going to put the paper cutter over here real quick. And I'm going to mark right here, where's that first one, and right there. And then I use the Cricut. I'm sure you could probably just use a regular hole punch, or I have the small one if you don't have the big one. That one's supposed to work. I was having a little bit of time with trying to get it to cut through all the layers, and so since I had the big one, I just went ahead and used that. But I'm sure you can figure it out. So then you just stick it in there where you made your mark, and I like to push the cutter blade about halfway down and make sure I've got it lined up good, and then I just cut through, and that gives me a nice hole. And then when I'm ready, once I've got all of this page that we did, oh, I forgot a step. You're supposed to actually glue, at this point, you're supposed to glue the back of the pages down too. So we'll lift that up, and then lift this one up, and just glue that. I think I'm running out of glue stick. Just glue that down. There we go. So that your spine of your book is glued together. And then there you go, just like that. And then once this one is covered in pattern paper too, and I've cut my hole in the first one, then I set the first one on top of the second one, and I take my pen and stick it through the hole and make a mark. So I'll know where to make my cut for this part of the album without, so that it lines up so I don't have a kind of a crooked looking album. So there we go. And then you can put a ring through it if you want to, just like that. Or with this one, I did the ribbon. I guess it's whatever you like. If you do with the ribbon, I did the eyelets because I thought those were really nice. I don't think with the rings you need them as much, but with the ribbon to kind of keep it from ripping the page, I think it's nice to have the